Hey, what's up, everyone? I am your host, Sethee.
I am stylist Rashi.
Elevated Grapes is a digital media hub that includes a talk show, event correspondence, and digital hosting for partner projects.
The talk show, which you are listening to or watching, depending what you're doing, covers topics in fashion, business, and lifestyle.
We regularly have incredible guests that share their stories, their experiences, and tips on the above topics.
And when we don't, you get to hear how we talk to each other off air.
So subscribe to your favorite streaming site, YouTube, and Instagram for behind the scenes and additional visual content.
Let's jump right into the show. Welcome to Elevated Grapes.
This is the Elevated Grapes Podcast.
Elevated Grapes Podcast.
With your host, Sethee.
Your host, Sethee.
And stylist, Rashi Bindra.
It's time to get started.
Let's talk fashion, shall we?
Welcome to Elevated Grapes. I am your host, Sethee.
And I am stylist Rashi Bindra.
And do you want to do an intro for me and I can do an intro for you? Because I think like we're so used to doing intros now that I think people, they're expecting it. So perhaps we can do one for each other and see how hilarious it is.
Okay, so in that case, you start because we all know how my intros are.
So today we have stylist Rashi Bindra, the stylist of the stars, published in 7,000 magazines. Currently working on some large contracts that we can't speak of yet because they're still under wraps. Going to be signed to an agency soon, which is also under wraps because we can't discuss the names until the final contracts are signed. So you're sitting next to a big star right now. So welcome, Rashi.
I love that introduction. Thank you.
How's that for an intro?
Oh, and that's amazing. Now we'll just make sure that actually happens. That I sign all those like dotted lines, and
Yeah.
Then we can name those images.
Yeah, then we can mention names.
Great. So with us we have your host Sethee, as well as for those who don't know, he's a big time DJ and a producer. He's working on some really cool mix tracks for these stars that I cannot tell you because I have a whole NDA going on with them, so I can't really mention anything. But yeah, he's like producing some really cool things. He's going to be appearing on his own talk show at a very cool network like channel. Like a network cable has picked him up. He has his own show. So think Late with Lily, but even better. But I cannot tell anything more than that. So guys, like we're having this fashion conversation with like the guy who's changing the whole game of hosting. Like, how cool is that?
Are you talking about me?
Yeah, about you. Oh, and he's wearing this amazing hat. So, I mean, come on, his style speaks for himself. So who else to talk about business, fashion, and lifestyle?
It's really interesting because I didn't know any of that stuff was true.
It is, in my head.
Yeah, fair enough. Sometimes you got to speak it into existence.
Just put it out in the universe. That's what we've been doing. And look at us today.
That's it. So we're babbling a lot here. It's because we haven't had a chance to do that in a long time on our show because usually we have guests and today it's just the two of us. And the reason we're going to do a wrap up on the designer series and all the amazing designers we've had the chance to chat with and those involved in that industry in the last 5 or 6 shows. Really, really interesting series concept for a show. And I got to credit Rashi because she brought up the idea and I'm like, you know what, that's really cool. Let's break it down into segments and focus on one specific area of the fashion industry and then really hone in on different people in that part of the segment. So in this case, fashion designers and some of the successes and challenges they're facing through the current situation. So it was a really cool way to get different perspectives from, geographically, they're all in different locations. The type of work they do is all very different.
Yeah.
The direction all of them have taken with their careers is very different, which was a nice way to see that uniqueness from each individual designer. Because although they're all in the same world, they're all facing challenges from such different ways.
Yeah, and I think what was very interesting was there was also a common theme with like all of them. There was not one designer that we spoke to that said that, because of COVID, I'm going bankrupt. In fact, they were like, actually, we are pivoting along with the times, but we're also seeing a change in consumer behavior and it's for the better. So that was the common theme, I think, with all of them. There was not one designer, I think, who said the opposite of that.
Yes, definitely. They're definitely all have that common theme that that they're seeing chances and opportunities to pivot and change the way the business direction has been, and some of the relationships they've built now, and some of the work strategically that they're doing now outside of the design work has actually helped their design businesses and careers. The philanthropy, all the different, I want to call them extracurricular activities outside of their actual core business has really bumped up their actual business itself, which is really nice to see.
And I also, what I do want to point out is that pretty much all the designers, they're doing more than just designing. Like either one's teaching design and they are a designer. One's giving back in some way and they're still designing, or they're designing multiple, categories. So that stream of income, now it's not just one thing that's giving you that. There's multiple different things. It's kind of okay to have your hand in a bunch of different things, and kind of let money work for you. Obviously the starting is hard. So one of the things I find that people in the fashion world are like, oh, we want to do a bunch of different things because we want to make money from all these things. In the long run, yes, that is going to happen if you're smart about it. But the initial stages is where if you're going to decide to do 5 different projects or 3 different projects, get prepared to work those 3 different projects until that flow starts coming in. And I think that's one of the lessons we've kind of learned by having these designers on our show.
So we're actually gonna spend some time to go through each individual show, what we took away from it, both of us individually and even as a group, and what we felt about each designer. But before we get into that, I'll ask you, and I'll answer for myself too. But what's one thing, if you had to pick one thing that stuck out from you between all 5 of those different designers, and one moment or one situation or one designer that stuck out, which one and why?
I don't know who's gonna like this answer of mine, but
I mean, they're all. This is not to discount. They're great. All of them are great in their own unique way. But sometimes one or two things just kind of stick with you, right? So if that's what I'm asking, which one and why stuck with you?
I think with Benud, what I really liked about our conversation with him was how humble he was throughout his entire career, his journey, even what he's doing next. And I was mind blown during our conversation. And I know at some point, him and I just chatted, and you had to tell us, hey guys, we're doing the show. But it was,
yeah, I remember. Yeah.
it was just such, it's so interesting to see people who have reached that height of recognition, and they have come to such a point in their lives where they can create schools and give back to young designers. They're still so humble, they're still so sweet about what they're doing, and they have so much gratitude. So I think for me, that is kind of like that flashing sign that no matter how much of our dreams come to reality, you still tend to have to be as humble or more so than you are. So I think for me, that was one of the biggest things that stood out, because I mean, he's an amazing designer. His craftsmanship is fantastic. I would die to pull from him, and work with his pieces. It was just it's so beautiful. And just to have that conversation with him was for me personally was just wow, you can get there and still be so, humble and just talk to us we're friends. There was no attitude or arrogance, with him. So that was one of the things that stood out with one of the designers.
So I got to agree with you. The one that stuck out to me or stays with me the most out of those conversations is Benud, in terms of his humbleness and his personality. I think that probably goes a long way to his success. But what I really liked about him is also over and above that, because I spent after that some time just going through his Instagram and just researching him a little bit more, just because I was intrigued more. We did our research ahead of time, but I was more intrigued after the conversation and hearing from him directly. So it provoked me to want to learn more about him. And I really enjoy the way his craft is really an art to him. It's not yes, he makes money. It's a business as well, but he's really focused in on the craft and the art of it, right? I mean, working with world-renowned artists, building one-of-a-kind pieces and taking their art pieces and building them into couture or apparel that a person can wear, to me is such a cool concept, because it's so unique on its own, just that thought and that idea. So when you look at his work, and it's like, that could really be a hit or a miss. You could take a concept like that and try to put it into, an article of clothing. You could really lose the essence of the artwork, or the clothing itself, and just maybe, too over the top or too much to a point where it's not wearable, or it just doesn't make sense. But the way he's built them and styled them out, it just, again, it owns the artwork, and it's an amazing piece of clothing as well. So I really got to give him credit for what he's doing and the way he's done it. And yes, I mean, obviously, then you talk to him as a person and all the philanthropy work he's doing and how humble he is, and building schools and with kids. I mean, if you can't find that to be something of value as a human, there's something wrong with you, right? So the fact that he spends so much of his time to do that, and so much of his energy and his hard-earned money to build the schools and to do something back for the world in such a meaningful way, it just it makes you have so much more appreciation for him as an artist too.
And I think what, for me, after that conversation, and I think you've noticed this now with the way I'm approaching things as well, is he treats his art as a business, and there's nothing wrong with that. And he approaches everything with such an attention to detail, and he's doing it because he loves it. Like, it's coming from a place of love, and then it's coming from a place of business. Yeah. And I think he approaches it with such a, almost like a magical mind. Like, it's not like, I mean, there's obviously strategy behind art for sure, but at the same time, it's not, okay, if I do this, I'm going to make this much, and this is my marketing plan. No, it's more this is so beautiful. I want to create this. I want to make this happen. And then the people around him are like, okay, that's great, but we also want to make sure you're being fed. So
of course.
so this is how we'll do it. But I think changing that mindset and seeing the magic in every beautiful thing in the world, even during COVID, he found magic in it. He found beauty in it. He found art in it, and he's using that to give back. I think that inspired me to shift my mindset and look at the stuff that I work in with that same attitude. And I have to say, it's really made a difference.
Yeah, no, I got to agree with you on that. So we're gonna, as we said, we're gonna go through. We interviewed 5 different folks, again, different walks of life, different types of work, different types of clothing, different apparel, different markets altogether. We're gonna go through all of them right after a quick break. Right now, this is Elevated Grapes with your host Sethee and
stylist Rashi Vidra. I thought you were going to say my name.
I was like, maybe I'll just say maybe one. But anyways, we're gonna be right back after this quick break.
Hey everybody, this is stylist Rashi Bindra, and if you like what you hear, hit subscribe and follow us on all your favorite streaming sites, on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. Just type in Elevated Grapes and you will find us.
And guess who's back?
Who? Who's back?
We are.
Oh, when you said guess who back, I was like, was there an invisible guest sitting with us that I totally ignored?
No,
didn't see?
We're back.
Yes,
so
we have fun with these moments.
Absolutely. Sometimes we can't do some of these weirdo things in front of professional people, so you got to take a chance when you can. So we're wrapping up our designer series. We had 5 amazing people we chatted with. We gave us, I guess, our top memorable moment or memorable conversation before the break. And just to reiterate, that doesn't mean that any of the other conversations were any less or didn't have an impact on us. It's just, the first thing, it's one of those, the first thing that sticks to your mind. That's where I was kind of leading at. But as I mentioned, so we had 5 amazing guests and in the designer series, and we're going to go through our thoughts in each of them. Our first one was Farley Chatto, who you and I actually, you've known him, but we got a chance to meet him at, I think it was Toronto Fashion Week.
Toronto Fashion Week, yeah. When I wore that hat, when I wore the hat and you guys just walked past by me, and I'm just like, what is going on here?
Yeah,
hello.
One, we didn't recognize you, and 2, your hat has its own orbit. You need there's a 30-foot diameter around you because of the size of the hat.
I still look good.
Yeah, you rocked it. No one's disagreeing that you rocked it. And both Nav and I literally walked by you, and you're like, "Hey guys," and we're like, "What?
I'm like,
Who's that?
hello.
Who's that?"
I'm like, your like co-host is right here.
Yeah, no, nobody recognized you. Well, obviously, we couldn't see your face because the hat was bigger than your whole body.
It was a cool hat, I will say that.
It was a cool hat. It was a cool hat. So Farley, we had a chance to actually, because we were covering an event at TFW, and we got a chance to interview him for a couple of minutes there at the event, which was kind of nice, live just after his show had finished, which was also a lot of fun to watch live. And then that sort of, I guess, led to us being able to interview him for this show. So let's because there's a bit more of a direct relationship there. Let's talk about the show real quick, like the actual fashion show we got to see, and for those who are listening, that you can go to our YouTube, because the cover of that is on our YouTube channel for that show, so you can take a look at some of his pieces live in a fashion show environment. But what did you like about that show, and then what did you like about the actual interview with him that we had just now for the fashion designer series?
I think, his show was in 2019, because right after that, we entered COVID. Like, we entered COVID in early 2020, right? So It was September. We did Toronto Fashion Week, and we were doing a bunch of things. And to still remember his pieces from then and now, it just says a lot about his design and his eye for detail, and the colors that he used. I still remember saying, if I die, put me in that pink gown, that pink mermaid gown that was so form-fitting. I want to wear that. Just that's all I want to wear when I die. Like, if not alive, at least dead, like here.
So basically, this is going to be in your final will, that if this were to be the case, you got to put me in the Farley Chateau.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, got you.
100%. The pink one. The
pink
one from his 2019 collection.
It's very specific.
With the fur too. With the fur and the 20s hair and makeup. Because that was the beauty, the whole thing. But guys, that was the beauty of his show back then. He took the 20s, he brought it to life. There was obviously, it's still something that you could wear today. It was still very, very trendy, but the way he did the retro mood, and his two gowns, like the orange one and the pink one. And again, guys, just go on our YouTube channel. It's all there. It was just so breathtaking, like to see that and to see his craftsmanship. And then when we were chatting with him, I mean, firstly, he's worked with the best fashion houses in the world, like to work with Dior, to work with Saint Laurent, like that is really honing in your craft and understanding how couture works, because most of us are in this fast fashion age, and most of us care about what we put on our Instagram, and how to wear this t-shirt 10 times that you bought from H&M or whatever, you know what I mean? It's style, it's not craft. That's the huge difference, you know what I mean? It's fashion, but it's not craft. There's no quality in that. And then to talk to a designer who brings that, even today, after all these years have passed by, and he's traveled the world and worked with all these big fashion houses, and to bring that into his pieces, and again, being so humble about it, he was so sweet to talk to. It just says a lot about him as a designer and as a person as well.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about him too, and I think that he, I'm sure he's faced, because when in almost every conversation we've had with him, the controversy of the fur that he works with, I'm assuming comes up quite regularly, because he knows it's a sticking point for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
And his conversation points around that are already prepared, and obviously he's done his research. He knows what he's getting himself into. He knows the ramifications of playing in that field, and what people will say to him, and how they're going to react, and not understanding the care he's taken to make sure that what he's working with is the most optimal or clean or whatever way to do it, right? To work with fur. He's not harming animals that are not that are already gone through through whatever, right?
His way is government regulated, so he was like he's doing it the right way. It's all legal. He's not harming any, like it's not for fun. He's not harming any, animals in that sense. Like it's like how you sell, chicken and stuff. Like it's all very, very properly done. So which is why, I mean, I was like, when you bury me, put the fur around me, because I know it's government regulated. It's all good and fine.
Yeah, I mean, basically his point is like they're not killing these animals just for that fur.
Yeah.
So it's, the reasons behind that. Again, I'm not going to try to explain it further because I'll butcher it, but, definitely Word Farley, it's worthwhile to do your due diligence and your research on him and how he goes about his craft, because like you mentioned, it's truly a craft. And he's not about the fast fashion. He's really, he's also, I think I remember in the conversation he was saying, this has also allowed him to slow down a little bit more, and be more focused on not building out, a line just for the season. He's building out, which was a big point, which we saw a commonality across the different designers, but this specifically was the first conversation, and it came up right away that it's allowed me to change my model, and I'm not running into doing something just because there's a due date. I'm doing it because now it's just the right thing to do and the right way to bring up my line.
And that is what a lot of designers, even the ones that we've not spoken to, but just globally are heading towards, because yes, there was way too many fashion shows. Like I think even we could not keep up at some point which show, which city, what season, what was happening. And I think that was a, crashing burning point for a lot of designers. And COVID has allowed them to like slow down, kind of go back to the old school model of like the design world, which is not a bad thing, because like, one of the things I've noticed, like even Farley said, yes, we're all about moving forward. We're all about innovation, but sometimes the lessons, it's like going back to basics. The things you learned when you first start something, or the first simple way of doing your craft or presenting a fashion show, that worked for a very, very long time. And there's no reason why it won't work now, when we've all had a chance to like just slow down and realize we don't need so much stuff, really.
Absolutely. And then the cool thing is our second guest after that, Ravi Narayan, had his perspective on the fashion designer industry is very unique, because he's not specifically a designer per se, but he works with many luxury brands and designers for his clientele. So his perspective was really unique. And that show, so we're jumping into the second show now with Ravi, was really interesting, because I think, it would almost have been nice to have Ravi's show at the last one, just because he kind of almost wrapped up what we heard from all the designers from his perspective, because he works with so many people in the luxury brand space for his clientele. His consulting group basically aligns luxury brands with companies, individuals, et cetera, et cetera. So he has that unique perspective, because he works with so many of them, that he gets to see this shift that's been happening, and how these brands, luxury brands, are still working to create that luxury brand experience without having the ability to do it in person or one-on-one or in a in-person environment. So that was really unique, because he's seen this trend of slow fashion across the board with all the different fashion designers and brands.
And he did point out that market of luxury is there. It's still there. It's still wide open. Like all markets, everyone's gone through a pivot, but it doesn't mean just because we're in a pandemic, people were not spending on luxury. The only difference is what type of luxury.
Exactly. What are they spending on that's luxury?
Exactly.
It's still luxury there.
Yeah, but they're like, and they still want quality. They still want that brand experience. They still want to feel, they still want to feel they are getting what they're paying for, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, and like if that's your lifestyle, that's your lifestyle, and that does exist. So.
I mean, I think he also, if I remember correctly, he was also mentioning that the luxury brand market has actually seen a bit of an uplift, only because people are not out and about spending as much. They have to, they have their disposable income. The wealthy that are able to spend on some of these luxury brands more regularly are still spending because they're not spending now on vacations and other things. So it's like, well, how do you make yourself feel better in this environment? So their whole thing is, okay, well, if I'm going to buy clothes, and whether it's lounge clothes or workout clothes or whatever, they're spending money on some of the more expensive and luxury brand names versus, as we mentioned earlier, some of the more common day-to-day names, right? So the money's still being spent on those luxury items and brands. And I think Ravi really kind of helped us to see that perspective and that this market is still there for those that have the financial wherewithal to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that market did not die down, which I think a lot of people initially thought they would. Like they were just like, oh, like luxury would be the first to like get affected. Yes, in the short run, because nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah, of course.
It did get a hit because you're like, why would I spend on Chanel when I don't know if we're gonna go back out? You know what I mean? Like in 4 weeks. But I don't recall if we spoke about this with Ravi or we had this in our conversation, but I think it was in China, as soon as they were cleared to go out and just shop and be like there was no lockdown, the brands that saw the biggest boom was your Dior's and like your Chanel's and like all of that, because people went straight to the luxury market, right? And that trend was going on everywhere in the world. Like people wanted to spend on beautiful things.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So that was it. So we covered, that was our discussions around Farley and Ravi. We're going to take a quick break right there, and then we're going to come back and discuss the remaining 3 designers. Well, Benood, we did a little bit, but we'll dive in further. But we're going to discuss Leslie and George Sethee as well. So we'll be right back. Yep. This is Elevated Grapes with your host, Sethee, and I'm going to say your name too. Rashi Bindra. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's your host, Sethee. We're also on TikTok, so make sure you follow us there at Elevated Grapes. Cheers, and back to the show.
Welcome back to Elevated Grapes. You're chatting. Well, you're not chatting. You're listening to your host, Sethee, and Stylist Rashi Bindra.
Okay, I keep thinking you're gonna like introduce me, So I'm just like, okay.
I was going in that time, but I was allowing you to finish your laugh.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So we're wrapping up our fashion designer series, which was our kickoff for the 2021 year. And for those that are listening in to our shows, this year we're taking a slightly different approach with our shows in that we're going to be doing them in segments for various aspects of the fashion industry. So the first series was the designer series. We're going to have a beauty and makeup artist series. We're going to have a model series. We're looking at other ideas of, maybe photographers and or agencies. So we're still planning out the remainder of the year, but there's other concepts and segments that we're looking at that would be of most interest to our listeners. So we decided doing a series based just so that it keeps a little more organized and it's focused and targeted as you're listening to the show. So we just wrapped up the fashion designer series. We had some amazing folks on there, Farley Chato, Ravi Narayan, who's more of a luxury brand consultant who aligns fashion brands with companies and or the ultra rich individuals. We had Benood, who we just touched on earlier. We'll give a quick couple of seconds on him as well, just to wrap up our comments on him. We spoke with Leslie Hampton, who's an Indigenous designer, really, really incredible story too. And then George Sully, who's making a lot of noise just outside of his work too, just building the awareness for Black Lives Matter and how it ties into Black designers. So we're going to go into all those couple of designers as well, just to cover up. So Benood, we spoke about him a little bit earlier and gave our thoughts. It's interesting that we both sort of picked him as the one that stuck out, but I'm not surprised again. And again, not to say anything that all of our conversations weren't amazing, but sometimes things just stick with you, and that just seemed to be the case with Benood. So talk to me a little bit more about your thoughts on Benood. We covered him in length already, but a couple of closing thoughts on Benood.
Well, besides him being very sweet and very, very, very humble, I think what I also appreciated about him is that he did admit that he did come from a family of artists and a family of like creative. So that did give him that platform that not necessarily all artists have. And I've noticed that, maybe it is a mindset thing. And I've noticed this very recently, is like, we sometimes feel just because a designer or an artist has that sort of backing, it's been very easy for them. And you have to be this, struggling, challenging, like starving artist to get to where you are today. Which I don't agree upon. I do think, like, if you have backing, that's great, and why not? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I also believe that he did have his own set of challenges that came with it, that own set of expectations, and using the talent of art to merge it into fashion and now into interiors is not as easy as it sounds, right? Because as an artist, you are seeing something, you have to still make it sellable or like wearable. It still has to be beautiful. And then again, like, it's why your piece, like why you as a designer versus somebody else, right? And finding that balance between the one-offs who will buy your stuff and within a niche market. So I do feel artists, just because they have backing, it doesn't mean they have it easy. They have their own set of challenges and like expectations that they do need to meet. And I think he's shown us that from his story. And it was just so well said and well done.
Well, I think the backing for him, like, I mean, yes, they have some, their family has some wealth and so on, but I think backing also comes from when talent is there too, right?
Yep.
If the talent wasn't there, or his vision didn't make sense, or, he couldn't deliver on what he was suggesting as an idea. Like, he delivers very well on his concept and idea, which is, again, so unique that I think if he wasn't as good at his skill or his talent that he's niche and honed in on, like, his niche, he wouldn't have had that ability to grow the way he did. If he wasn't able to
absolutely
build those right relationships with the artists that he's working with, and the big names he's working on that side, like, this wouldn't have happened on its own. So yes, I do agree with you that some of that is, everybody has their key advantage that helps them to at least get started or build off, and something that they make, whether they don't have it in the family, and they make a connection along the way at their starting points, or throughout their career, and that gives them the boost that they need. I mean, his was right at home, so it made it easier for him, but without the skill set, he still wouldn't have made it. So I do think that his skill and his personality, even with all that, being around a family of incredible artists or people that are incredible at their craft, and having a little bit of wealth, he's still, like you said, quite humble. And he doesn't come like, he's not a cocky, he's not out there saying I'm the best. Like, he's very good at what he does. He knows that, but he's appropriately confident about it.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with, like, there's nothing wrong with being that person. I find, like, again, right, I find I find people has that inner struggle within themselves. So I just, like, I will always say, if you are confident in who you are and what you're doing, there's no harm in, like, owning it. Obviously, don't be cocky about it, or don't be an ass about it, because nobody likes that. But just be yourself. And I think he really shows us that. So I think that is one of the reasons why, again, I will say,
He's
I do
stuck
love
with you.
everybody. Yeah, like, I do love everybody that we spoke, and I do have, some sort of relationships with them as well. So it's
Of
not
course,
to say that they're not amazing people, but he completely blew me away, for sure.
absolutely. So next we had oh my God, she's also incredible. Leslie Hampton.
Oh
Wow,
my God.
she was just so
Wow.
fun to talk to, and just
It
learning
was
about
so
her story.
sweet.
Super sweet. And so, and she a lot of people, I find, and this is what I liked about her, a lot of people, if they have an ethnic affiliation, sometimes they'll shy away from working within that community, or building within that community, or bringing awareness to that community. Because sometimes I feel people, it's like, well, I gotta be different. I gotta show that I'm different. I gotta show that I can build without that. She really owns that community. Like, like, she owns that she's from that community, and she owns the fashion that comes out of that community, and how she's built it into an actual collection or a line. And she's used that to also build her relationships externally, because to her, it's like, she got to travel the world a bit at an early age, and see that the awareness for Indigenous people was not as much as it needed to be, or it wasn't there. In Canada and parts of Canada specifically, yes, but she's traveling across the globe and she wasn't seeing it there. And so she's like, you know what, I'm going to take my love for fashion, and I'm going to take my community and bring the awareness through my love for fashion to the community, and use my art to do it. So I found that really cool about her story.
And she's very graceful about it. She has, she said her story with such ease and grace, and you go back to hearing her conversation and her episode, and it does make you question yourself a bit, and you do ask yourself, like, am I owning my roots and my community, or am I shying away from it? And we all go through that. Some of us do so, and some of us don't, and that's fine. But to and I will again use this word, to very gracefully own it, build a brand, and it's almost like you're quietly doing it without making too much of the hype, but you're letting your work speak for yourself. You're letting your personality speak for yourself, and like even her shows, like when I've seen them, they've always stuck with me at that time. Like I remember, being so excited, like especially when I moved here. Oh my God, I went to a Leslie Hampton show. You know what I mean? I was like so excited. And that speaks volumes of, who she is as a designer and how much she's grown. So yeah.
And then philanthropy also, like, with it seems like a common theme with a lot of these folks is philanthropy is a big part of her repertoire too, right? And again, not doing it because she needs to, or she needs to, show that she's doing it, or like she's not doing it for namesake. She's doing it because these are things that she actually cares about and are important to her. So she's putting her time towards it too.
Yeah, that goes back to your core system, your values, your beliefs, right? Because like you said, it's not about showing off that, oh, I'm doing this because I'm a brand. It's like, this is important to me. That's why I'm choosing this way of giving back, because this has helped me. This is important to me, and I want people, after me to have that same opportunity or even better. And thinking like that is just, it's hard to find people like that in today's world, because it's very easy to get caught up in your own self.
Especially when it's so genuine too, and she's doing it for the right reasons. And so, speaking of giving back, our last guest, George Sully, is no stranger to that too, because he's really spent a lot of this last year in 2020 to focus on the Black Lives Matter movement, and also bring awareness into him. And it was more of a almost like a light went off. Like, why is it that there's so many amazing Black designers and they don't have a voice, or they don't have a place to be heard or to be seen, or to be even considered, when it comes to fashion in the fashion world. And so him, and I mean, it was led by him, but him and a few folks within his network started a movement for that, right? Or to bring awareness to Black designers, which I thought was an incredible way to give back. Someone he's seen success as a Black designer, and it's like, there's other amazing Black designers that are not getting their foot in the door, or getting called on for, whether it's product placement or polls or ads or whatever the case, or fashion shows. And he's built a home for those designers to also be known.
Yeah, and going back to also what kind of like the similar trait that like Leslie had, it's like, my community, my people, I want them out there, right? Like I want to see them, that sense of pride that comes. So to hunt and find all the Black designers and question, but why aren't people talking about them? Why aren't stylists like pulling from them? Why aren't they on the radar, right? It starts opening doors, and he was asking the questions that not necessarily everybody had the answers to at that moment, and that spoke volumes of what was going on. And I think he helped, especially in Ontario, kind of have every community question that, and have every community literally look back at themselves and be like, why aren't we all supporting each other?
Absolutely.
Like, why aren't we standing for ourselves, right? And I do give him that for making that conversation so loud.
Absolutely. And he's gotten a lot of support, as he should, in that
100%,
with
yeah.
that, building that out. And I don't remember the exact number, but I mean, the entirety of the show, we spent a lot of time discussing it, but there's hundreds of designers that he's put together on this.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah. So again, kudos to him for, again, I think we mentioned earlier on the show too, is that there's one thing to be a part of a movement and voice your opinion on it, but there's another to lead a charge for that same movement. And he's sort of set the bar and is almost into an exemplary status where he's jumped in and said, well, I'm going to make a change here in this part of this industry for this. And it's all, it's not him and some people, but he led that charge for that initiative, which was incredible.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not easy, right? It's not easy.
Not at all.
Be the leader in that. It's not easy standing up. It's not easy, voicing your opinion and wondering what's going to happen.
Well, there's
next.
risks. There's risks
Right.
involved with it sometimes, right? So, but to him, it's like, that's the risk is not of. There should be no risk, because there should be no reason why these designers don't have why these designers don't have a voice or a place to showcase their designs and to be used just like other designers are, right? So there, to him, it's like there's no risk here. Like if people don't believe in that or understand that, then he doesn't want to be working with them, right? So I do get 100% where he's coming from. So again, all in all, like, we had some really cool guests from the Fashion Designer Series perspective. Again, great stories, very philanthropic, very involved in certain passions, and again, all doing it for the art. The one theme over and over we heard, as you mentioned earlier, was slow fashion.
Yes.
The things are changing. They're moving. It's not light speed. It's not. I got to build a line for the the next season. It's let's build a line that makes sense for the brand and for what people need, which I think is really cool. And a lot of brands have been able to pivot and do things that they may have not done in the past, because the brand is only representative of one style or specific type of work, and this is given the opportunity to explore some of the other interests and areas to build their designs, which I think is nice too.
Yeah, and they're also moving towards a bit of the whole genderless fashion in their own way of showing it. Again, that is a whole different way of looking at where trends are going, where the design world is going. I do believe sustainable fashion is more so along the route than genderless. I mean, they both are, but I feel like from my understanding and from what I see, sustainability will be there longer than genderless fashion for sure. But it's also very interesting to see how all the designers kind of took their own approach to everything. And
absolutely. And
one of the other common themes was their sense of collaboration versus competition now. Like,
yes,
no one's really in an insecure place where we have to compete aggressively with each other. Yes, as designers, you're in a field where you do want your designs to be the best, but you're also aware that you're not going to cater to every market, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So that approach makes things also very, very different. So it was a really good conversation with all of them.
Absolutely. So before we close up, let's sort of give a little bit of a teaser as to what people should expect from the next series, which I think we're going to be dropping the beauty and makeup artist series that's coming up next.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that series. So we've spoken to a couple of amazing people. I'm gonna just talk about these two women. Like, I won't say who they are, but I will mention they two are very, very different.
No names right now.
Yes, no names.
You got to stick around and watch.
Very different women. The conversations were fantastic. I think with one of them, there might be a clip of me dancing in the background with my hands up. So that's how crazy we got. And then with the other one, I think we all felt that how has it been an hour already? Like every time we had to, take a break, I think we all we literally looked at each other. We're like, oh, we have to stop now. Like we have to stop right now and stop. And that speaks volumes. And they have inspired me, especially one of them has inspired me so much that after our conversation, I sat down, rewrote a bunch of things of how I want to approach stuff. And I've already begun kind of approaching just what I do in that manner. Like that's how much this woman has inspired me already. So I cannot wait until you guys listen to that conversation.
Yeah, so we're like Rashi said, there's different perspectives. We're talking to folks that are major online influencers and built a makeup artistry brand through their online strategies. We're talking to folks who do regular work with some of the biggest magazines and brands in the world as a makeup artist. So lucky enough that we were able to connect with some of these people and get them on the show. So you definitely want to tune into the makeup artist and beauty segment that's coming up. There'll be another series like the fashion designer series, and if that's an area of interest for you, these are people that you want to pay attention to because they've done something right to build their brands, and they're very successful in what they do as well. Without any hesitation, we'll say that, right? So definitely a worthwhile series to tune into as well. So pretty excited to share that one. Like Rashi said, we've completed a couple of the conversations already. We have a few more lined up, and we're recording them soon. But yeah, you want to definitely tune into those.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited about these. Get them out soon. I was like, oh my god, we have to wait a little bit longer. But
yes, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. It's worth the wait. These are great guests to have. So that's it for us this week. It was just a wrap up of our fashion designer series. We will see you next week with the start or kickoff of the beauty series, which we're excited to launch, and look forward to you guys tuning in and sharing your thoughts with us about that.
Until next time, this is Elevated Grapes. I am Rashi Styles. I'm not your host, Sethee, and we have our host with us as well. Until next time, guys.
Cheers. Have a good one.
Hey guys, thank you for watching that podcast or that video. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more of us and see some of our behind the scenes stuff, subscribe below.
Yes, hit that little red button thingy that's over there and hit subscribe and keep following us for a lot more cool fun stuff.
Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you soon. Hey, what's up everyone? I am your host, Sethee.
I am stylist Rashi Bindra.
Elevated Grapes is a digital media hub that includes a talk show, event correspondence, and digital hosting for partner projects.
The talk show which you are listening to or watching, depending what you're doing, covers topics in fashion, business, and lifestyle.
We regularly have incredible guests that share their stories, their experiences, and tips on the above topics.
And when we don't, you get to hear how we talk to each other off air.
So subscribe to your favorite streaming site, YouTube, and Instagram for behind the scenes and additional visual content.
Let's jump right into the show. Welcome to Elevated Grapes.